7%
That's not the question.
of the total
My
tax.
question is, why do you think at a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, when people like yourself economically have never, ever had it so good, why do you think it's a good idea to cut Medicaid for low-income and working-class people by $700 billion, to give $235 billion in tax breaks to the very, very, very richest people in this country, perhaps a few hundred families? Please justify that and tell me about that.
Well, Senator, I don't know, but the Democrats had the trifecta, and there was no tax increase or wealth tax on billionaires. You choose.
I'm not talking about a tax.
You chose not to
Mr.
do
Bessent,
that,
I
so
am not
you can
talking
tell
about
me.
a wealth tax. Explain. A few hundred of the wealthiest families in this country, $235 billion tax break. Explain to the American people why you think that's a great idea.
Bernie Sanders just exposed Trump's Treasury Secretary in the most brutal way possible. Imagine this, cutting $700 billion from Medicaid so you can hand $235 billion in tax breaks to a few hundred billionaire families. That's the plan. And experts say it could cost 50,000 American lives every single year. Sanders looked Scott Bessent dead in the eye and asked the only question that matters. How can you justify killing poor and working class people just to give billionaires another handout? Spoiler, he couldn't. Let's talk about it.
And their health care costs are going to go up as well.
Well, we'll argue on that one. Senator Sanders.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Bessent, for being here. Help me out here. My understanding is the Trump administration has, I think, 13 billionaires in office right now, leading government agencies. Is that about right, do you think?
I have no idea, Senator.
I think that's what the number is. Do you think it's a coincidence, given the large number of billionaires in the Trump administration, that this particular piece of legislation would provide $235 billion in tax breaks to the top 0.2% by expanding the exemptions in the estate tax?
Senator, I will tell you that when the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed, my tax rate went up.
Well, I don't know your exact situation, but I can tell you. Tell me about, how many people do you think are in the top 0.2%?
Sorry?
Number of people in the top 0.2% who would benefit from this particular $235 billion tax break.
Well, the top, I know the top 10% is
Right.
now paying 7%
That's not the
of
question.
the total tax.
My question is, why do you think at a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, when people like yourself economically have never, ever had it so good, why do you think it's a good idea to cut Medicaid for low-income and working-class people by $700 billion, to give $235 billion in tax breaks to the very, very, very richest people in this country, perhaps a few hundred families? Please justify that and tell me about that.
Well, Senator, I don't know, but the Democrats had the trifecta, and there was no tax increase or wealth tax on billionaires. You choose.
I'm not talking about a tax.
You chose not to
Mr.
do
Bessent,
that,
I
so
am not
you can
talking
tell
about
me.
a wealth tax. Explain. A few hundred of the wealthiest families in this country, $235 billion tax break. Explain to the American people why you think that's a great idea.
I think that this will increase small businesses substantially. That most small businesses, they are...
Has zero to do with, come on, you're smarter than that. This is the top 0.2%. This is not a mom and pop store. These are multi-billionaires, and the savings go to their kids after they pass away. This is nothing more than a gift to billionaires in this country.
Well, sir, that's just not correct, because the top 10% paid a bigger share of taxes after TCJA.
I'm talking about one provision in this. I don't want to argue with you about taxes in general. One provision, few hundred families, $235 billion in tax breaks. You can't justify that because morally it is totally unjustifiable. Let me ask you another question. If you guys want to cut $1 trillion in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, the estimate from CBO, I believe, is that over 15 million people lose their health insurance. Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania estimated that when you throw that many low-income and working-class people off of health care, some 50,000 people a year will die. Tell me why you think it's a good idea to give tax breaks to billionaires and allow 50,000 low-income and working-class people to die unnecessarily?
Senator, first of all, that's overstated by 5.1 million. That is not attributed to this bill. It is simply
It's a combination. That's true.
No. You all had a scheduled expiration of Obamacare subsidies, and you did not extend that when you were in charge. 5.1 million. 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid.
All right, look,
and there are work requirements. And our goal is to get more money to children and mothers.
Really? Your goal is to get more money to children, and working people. Really? Come on. Do you know how many people, and I was surprised to hear this, I don't know if you know it or not, how many people lose their jobs every year, quit, get fired or whatever? Do you have any idea?
Well, there's something called the quits rate, and so when the job market is strong, more people quit.
But yeah, I was surprised that I just researched this. I don't know. Do you happen to know?
I don't know the number.
I was surprised. I mean, would it be shocking to you? It was to me. 20 million people leave their jobs a year. Doesn't shock you, right? It's a big labor force, right?
Yep.
So some guy leaves the job, maybe they move, maybe something happens in their lives, right? We have a lot of transition in the labor market, correct?
Maybe they get a better job.
Right, exactly. Maybe they do. Or maybe they have to stay home, their wife gets sick, whatever, we don't know. But 20 million people lose their jobs in a given year, leave their jobs in a given year. Are those people lazy? What happens when I leave my job and maybe I have to move to another state to take care of my ill mother, and I desperately need Medicaid? Am I too lazy now to be able to get Medicaid?
I think that's a mischaracterization of the work requirement.
Really? Well, I'm not quite so sure it is.
When Senator Bernie Sanders leaned into the microphone and pressed Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent about Trump's tax cuts, you could feel the tension crackle through the room. And honestly, it wasn't just another Senate hearing moment. It was the entire debate over America's future condensed into a few minutes. Sanders cut through the jargon and asked the simplest, rawest question. Why is this government preparing to slash healthcare for millions of Americans just to give a financial windfall to a handful of billionaires? That's not hyperbole. That's not partisan spin. That is literally what's on the table. A proposal that takes $700 billion away from Medicaid, a program that keeps low-income seniors in nursing homes, helps people with disabilities get basic care, and provides health coverage for children and struggling families, all to finance a $235 billion tax giveaway to the wealthiest 0.2% of Americans. We're talking about a few hundred families at most. That's who stands to benefit. Sanders asked Bessent point blank, how do you justify this? And the truth is, he couldn't. He squirmed, he dodged, he reached for technicalities, anecdotes, and excuses. But he never answered the moral question, because there is no moral justification. There's only greed and political power. Now, let's put this in context. Trump's so-called One Big Beautiful bill is the vehicle here, and inside that bill is a permanent extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts that were originally set to expire at the end of 2025. Those tax cuts overwhelmingly favored the wealthy and large corporations. Yes, middle-income families got some temporary relief, but the biggest winners were those at the very top. And now, Trump's team wants to lock those giveaways in forever. Who's defending this? Scott Bessent, a billionaire hedge fund manager turned Treasury Secretary. He's worth hundreds of millions, maybe billions. He's not some outsider who clawed his way up. He is the system. And when he says this is about protecting the middle class, you have to ask, since when has a billionaire ever worried about whether working families could afford health care? The real numbers don't lie. Nonpartisan analysis from the Congressional Budget Office shows that tens of millions would lose health coverage under these cuts. Yale and University of Pennsylvania researchers estimated that upwards of 50,000 preventable deaths would occur every year if this plan is enacted. That's not a scare tactic. That's what happens when people can't see a doctor, can't afford prescriptions, can't access hospitals. When healthcare is taken away, people die. It's that simple. And Sanders put that reality on the record. People will die if these cuts go through. Not abstract numbers. Real mothers, fathers, children, neighbors. 50,000 every year. Now, how did Bessent respond? He tried to claim the numbers were exaggerated. He threw out talking points about small businesses benefiting. He pointed to the top 10% paying a greater share of taxes after the 2017 cuts. But notice what he didn't do. He didn't deny that the richest of the rich would benefit most. He didn't deny that Medicaid would be slashed. He didn't deny that people would lose coverage. He just danced around it. Sanders wouldn't let him off the hook. He cut in and said, essentially, come on, you're smarter than that. This isn't about small businesses. This isn't about mom and pop stores. This is about billionaires and their kids inheriting massive fortunes. That's what this is. And that's the truth. The GOP always wraps these tax cuts in the language of the little guy. They say it's about family businesses, farmers, entrepreneurs. But when you peel back the wrapping, the core is always the same: dynastic wealth. The Waltons, the Kochs, the mega heirs. Families that already control more wealth than entire states combined. They're the ones cashing in. Let's zoom out. The estate tax, which is where much of this $235 billion giveaway comes from, is only paid by the richest families in the nation. In fact, right now, less than 0.2% of estates pay it. We're talking about a tax that literally only applies to billionaires and multimillionaires with massive inheritances. Yet the GOP frames this as if grandma's farm is about to be repossessed by the IRS. It's not true. The family farm myth is one of the biggest lies in American politics. The estate tax is a billionaire tax, period. If you agree that billionaires shouldn't get tax breaks while millions lose healthcare, hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to Progressive Lens. Let's keep building this community, and let's keep fighting together for truth and justice. See you next time.